This Portkeys tempered glass 5.5 inch 1080p 1700 nit lightweight aluminium body wireless capable field monitor. It's pretty interesting. How's it going everyone? David from dodmedia. Today we're having a look at the Portkeys LH5P field monitor. Portkeys sent this to me to test out, and if I liked it, I'd review it, and if I didn't like it, I'd send it back. And if you're familiar with any of my reviews, you'll know that I don't really make a review just for the sake of trash talking something. Don't see the point in that. So if you're watching a review about something on here, it generally means it's pretty good. So in a nutshell, before I jump into the review, this is a light, bright, well-built and packed full of features budget field monitor. Basically all the bells and whistles that you get in monitors these days. So false colors, focus peaking, histogram, RGB waveform, Luma waveform. You've got audio meters, you've got 3D LUT capability to load in there if you want to, all of the usual stuff. But on top of that, they've added wireless capability. And that means that you can connect Bluetooth or a 2.4 gigahertz wireless network. And by connecting to those cameras or devices, you're then able to control certain parameters of them directly on the monitor. So for example, the Blackmagic that is filming on right now, I was able to connect via Bluetooth and control pretty much everything. Shutter speed, aperture, color temperature, frame rate. I was able to change the B-roll compression ratio. I was able to switch between 6K B-roll down to whatever, 4K ProRes or 4K B-roll. Basically all the parameters that the Blackmagic puts up on offer through its Bluetooth app. Portkeys have sort of piggybacked on that and made it available to control directly through the touchscreen. I also controlled the A7 III with it wirelessly, which is my B cam right now. And while that worked, it had a few of its own issues, and I don't think that's the Portkeys monitor to blame at all. I think it's the fact that the A7 III has a teeny tiny transmitter aerial in it. So when it's transmitting a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi network, it's kind of crap. And unless you're in the middle of nowhere where there's zero interference, you're constantly going to be getting interference from other devices transmitting that standard 2.4 gigahertz. And I've experienced this not just with this monitor, but when I'm using it on my phone as well. It's not reliable. It's great if you're connecting to another network, but if it's transmitting its own network, it ain't worth it. But you can use a USB cable instead to still control all those parameters. Anyway, back to the monitor. I love that it uses a 5-pin connector instead of a DC barrel, because I have found, I don't know about you, but DC barrels, they come in many shapes and sizes. Well, not shapes, they're all cylinders, but many sizes. And a lot of these cables that you get with monitors, with devices for cameras, they're not always set to a standard. So you can have a barrel cable just a tiny bit loose or a tiny bit too tight, and you don't want to have to be wedging it in there, and you don't want it to accidentally just fall out while you're shooting or using your camera. So the fact that it uses this 5-pin connector that's very similar to the power cable that goes into the Blackmagic, it is a click and forget kind of deal, which is really good. I love that. And also it means it's really lightweight and thin, which makes it really easy to wrap around a rig and be unobtrusive. I also love that the power switch is actually a switch and not a button. That means that you can switch it off and it actually acts like a clean kill switch. So if you leave a battery in there, it's not going to drain the battery. There's not going to be little LED lights staying on saying, hey, I know there's a battery here, which I just find so incredibly stupid with a lot of other budget field monitors. I don't need to know that there's a battery in there. I put it in there. It didn't just appear in there. So don't drain my power. So anyway, nice kill switch, that's lovely. And right here, I'm actually running the power cable into a V-lock, so that's nice. I can just turn the V-lock off here at the source instead of having to faff around with the actual power on here. But if you're using a little Sony NPF battery, then it's nice that it's not going to drain it when you're not using it. All of the shortcut buttons and menu buttons and stuff up here feel really good as well. And in fact, the entire chassis of the body is made of aluminium. So it is solid. And that's something that I have had an issue with some other entry-level budget monitors like Andy Cine and Fieldworld monitors that I've tried, is that, you know, the display is fantastic and the features in the display are fantastic, but the body is crap because they need to make it cheaply. And so they compromise on the build quality. They're flimsy. The Andy Cine monitor that I was going to review a few months ago and chose not to, I chose not to review it because the build quality was terrible. I didn't feel like I could put that monitor under any strain whatsoever. I could actually see when I was adjusting, you know, its position, I could see the 1/4-20-inch thread socket moving around a little bit inside that plastic enclosure. It just wasn't solid, and it would eventually break. There's no doubt about it. Whereas with the Portkeys, you don't get any of those worries because the whole thing, well, it's solid metal. And also the glass is a lovely display, which is tempered glass. So again, you got a little bit more resistance, a little bit more build quality there. The glass, however, caveat here is that it is a glossy finish, which means that you get a much nicer contrast from the picture. It's more dynamic, it's more vibrant. But it also means that if you're shooting in bright conditions, you just won't be able to see it. You'll see your t-shirt reflected in it, or you'll see your face squinting in the reflection, trying to figure out what you're actually shooting. So I've actually ordered a mattifying peel that I'm gonna add to this to remove that glossy glare, basically, the reflectivity of the screen. And I would highly recommend that you get one of those if you're thinking about this, because it doesn't come with a sun hood. And to be honest, even if it came with a sun hood, you'd still have the issue of how reflective, how just spat there. Try that again. Even if you had a sun hood, you'd still be dealing with the issue of how reflective and glossy the screen is. So indoors, phenomenal. Outdoors, kind of harder to see. But because it's 1700 nits at its brightest power setting, having something that can mattify it and remove those glares, well, then you're not gonna have any problem seeing it in the daylight. It's not an issue of brightness, it's an issue of contrasting reflections that sap away all visibility. It is amazing how much is packed into this user interface, and the way that it uses the tiling and swipe for, you know, motion directions and to get to different menus and that kind of stuff. It's incredible that they've packed that all in there for you, and it's very easy to use. But it's also very unforgiving. You know, if someone comes along, say you or a nosy director or producer, and they accidentally tap something on the screen, you know, the tiniest touch and it will register it. There's no amount of pressure that you need to press on this to get it to actually activate that function. So just be aware of that. It is a lovely user interface and a lovely touchscreen, but it is a very unforgiving one. But if you can get used to the user interface, navigating it, not accidentally pressing stuff, and you can get used to how unforgiving that touchscreen is, and you can mattify that screen, then I would have to say this is probably the best bang for buck budget field monitor that is out there at 5.5 inches. It's got considerably extra features over its competitors. It's got a much better build quality, and it's extremely light and extremely bright. All right, let me know what you thought about this review. If you're interested in getting the LH5P, there is a link in the description, which is an affiliate link, which means that it won't charge you anything extra, but a tiny commission will come to me at Amazon or BH Photos expense. Lovely stuff. You'll be supporting this channel to make more reviews like this. Give it a thumbs up if you like this video. Hit that subscribe video. What am I talking about? Give it a thumbs up if you liked what you saw. Hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.